be with you. Okay, I am back, and I suppose I could wait around for people to come into the chat. I don't know if I will. I'm here. Dog's just screwing everything up. Got tangled up in the cord. Anyway, I want to talk about the third quarter earnings, which apparently was today. Now that I remember it, they always do it on a Wednesday. Okay, so Disney, they didn't upload the webcast, so I can't hear everything I wanted to hear. But their stocks are down by 2 points. It's like 115, and they were like 117 or 118 yesterday. And I think the reason why is simply the fact that Fantastic Four didn't do very well. And look, Iger talked about Marvel. They're mining the franchise for characters, and they're rebooting it. I think hey Dave, how you doing? I think the problem with Marvel is people are getting old over Marvel. I don't think it's DC. I think it's probably Marvel, and the fact that people are done with Pedro Pascal. He probably should not have played Reed, whatever his name is, from the Fantastic Four. I could give a fuck, to be honest. I didn't hear them address anything with Star Wars, and it's been really quiet on that. Yesterday, of course, Matt Smith was announced. He's going to be in the Starfighter movie, playing one of the villains, and you know, I think it's Cameron basically agreed on his Patreon that it's probably payback because they cut his whole part out. Again, if you guys go and find the short teaser from The Rise of Palpatine, there's Kylo Ren, Darth Emo, wandering around this planet, and you hear Palpatine talking to him. You hear Snoke talking to him. You hear Vader. But I had a friend look at the sound, and he said there's one person saying everything that they're saying underneath all of it, and you don't discern it, like out there. It's almost like it's subliminal, right? And they do that. I mean, they you know, and I think that was Matt Smith as the son of Mortis. That's just me. So he's getting a role as a bad guy in Starfighter. Yeah, he did. I'm positive, because if you look at that teaser, you can find it anywhere. There's something strange about it, and you can hear something else going on underneath their voices. And if you remember, he was playing a character that can shapeshift. That, I mean, you know, when we had the Mortis arc in Clone Wars, the son visited Anakin as Shmi Skywalker, so he could be anything, anytime. And so I think he was supposed to be the son in that. And Kennedy freaked out. First off, she wasn't getting Reylo, and for some reason she thought she could turn Star Wars into Twilight because she doesn't think about anything else but what's trendy. So she went with all the woke shit, and now it works because she's an idiot. And of course, Ray Blow, they went online to see if the fans really liked it. No, we didn't. And we proved it because the movie barely made $1 billion. And if Caroline Reed wants to argue with me, I don't think it made a goddamn dime. That's me. They left it out in the theaters for months. 4 months. so it could get to $1 billion. Okay, that's the truth. Go look it up. So I don't know. Did anybody else listen to the webcast? Because I thought it was tomorrow. Honestly, when I looked at it this week, I thought, oh, it's on Thursday. Like a dummy, because I'm dyslexic, okay, and I miss things. And I don't know if you mentioned Star Wars at all, but on that front, we know they're filming Ahsoka season 2. We know Mando and Grogu wrapped. We know they're getting ready to start up with the Sean Levy thing. Now, I am going to address today's video that's not getting any airplay, so Dave, if you want to put a link in the chat, that'd be great. Apparently, Dan Richtman decided to put another Rey movie rumor out there. I got a worried email or a message from Mike Ayers about it, or no, from somebody else, a friend of mine named Tom, and I'm like, no. I mean, there's no want for it. Look, the franchise is on its last legs as far as like being profitable. And they can make it profitable. All they got to do is fix what they broke and admit they broke it and not do it again, right? Which Disney never will because they're worried about what their shareholders would think. And I think their shareholders, I won, by the way, will go, you think so? So I am mystified why Rickman keeps putting this out there when it's not true. They don't have a writer. Stephen Knight, as I reported, is now deep into writing a new Bond movie. And when that script is done, then Denis Villeneuve will go and find the Bond, right? So I'm like going, okay, they don't have a writer. Ridley doesn't have any space in her calendar for this. Oscar Isaac himself at Celebration told a fan, no, he's not in it. He didn't say there is no Rey movie. He said he's not in it. Now, it could mean anything. And I'm going to be the impartial jury. He could mean no, they're not going to have Poe in it. Or he could mean no, because there is no movie. Right? It could be one or the other. And depending on your attitude, that's what you'll embrace. Because of the fact that Lucasfilm had to step out of Disney's financial umbrella to get funding for Starfighter. I guarantee you that they'd never get money for a Rey movie. Actually, Anthony, I've talked about this incessantly. Matt Smith actually did film parts for The Rise of Palpatine. He actually went to the premiere. He was seen walking in and to the premiere. He filmed parts. They showed the rough cut that July before to the suits. Kennedy shit her pants. She lost her shit. There was no Rey blow kiss. There were other things that she didn't like. They literally cut him out, right? Now you could have had Mortis and Palpatine, but I'm not really sure because we found out Palpatine was going to be in it after the movie came out. So I'm not really sure when Ian McDiarmid actually jumped in. And the movie was so badly put together, kind of like a couple of episodes of Andor, when I start thinking about editing jumps, that you can see something else should have been in a spot and it wasn't, right? So yeah, he did film parts. I'm positive. And the Starfighter role is his compensation for getting fucked over by Kathleen Kennedy, right? And I'm sure that Sean Levy and Jon Favreau said, okay, whatever. Yes, go back and look at. I have been on YouTube since 2016, so almost 10 years. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff I talk about comes true, or is true. Okay. Yeah, so he was in it. And if you go back and look, I mean, I had a friend who's very well connected to Lucasfilm at the time, Craig, who I was talking to him in a chat one day, and I said the bad guy's got to be the son of Mortis, and he said correctamundo. He was told by somebody at Lucasfilm that's exactly who the bad guy was. That's why Matt Smith was there. And now it's like, because Kennedy, look, I'm going to explain something about Kathleen Kennedy to you. She thinks she's a filmmaker, right up there with Sherry Lansing and Dawn Steele, whom I talked about yesterday. Sherry Lansing and Dawn Steele, who created things like, Top Gun and other fantastic movies. She sticks her nose up at animation. It's for children. Even though when you look at animated shorts, going all the way back to the 20s, when Disney started his adventure in entertainment, animated shorts were not child's stuff, right? I mean, a lot of the stuff was for adults. Cross-dressing Bugs Bunny, so many of them. And they were made for adults because, explain this, I don't know. If you're a millennial or Generation Z and you're not familiar with the evolution of filmmaking, but when you walked into a movie theater in the 30s, 40s, 50s, you were treated to a few newsreels, several cartoon shorts, a serial film, and then maybe one short movie, and then the matinee, the big movie. So you were there for a while. It was an event to go to a movie. And why people think they're for kids, like Kathleen, is because back in the 60s and 70s, they took the shorts and put them on the Warner Brothers cartoon thing in the mornings on Saturday mornings. And then, you get Warner Brothers cartoons after school on WGN. And then that migrated over to TNT because Ted Turner had bought the library. And there's a lot of film history that's lost because people aren't looking at those, at the older cartoons. There's an older cartoon film, and I think it's either Warner Brothers or it's either Warner Brothers or it was Disney, but it was called The Toy Store. Christmas Eve Toy Store, whatever. And I remember coming home later in the afternoon, and of course in December up in Wisconsin, by 4 o'clock it's dark. And if it's snowing, then it's really dark. And it was like, turn on the TV and watching this, and it was fantastic. I can't find that cartoon anywhere. Now I've seen a couple that are called Toy Store Christmas Eve, but it's not the same one. I don't know why. Maybe it is the same one. I just don't recognize it. I don't know. But a lot of history is lost because people don't respect animation. In fact, when George Lucas did his internship at Warner Brothers and everything, he wanted to be an animator. And they just sent him to go find something that he was interested in. He ran into Francis Ford Coppola, who was filming that Fred Astaire movie, Finian's Rainbow or something like that. I can't remember what exactly it was called. And George at first said it's boring. And to Coppola, that's where he met Francis Ford Coppola, right? He was this young, doe-eyed college student, and Coppola was already moving along in Hollywood, well, outside Hollywood, because he's not an insider either. Finian's Rainbow. And George wanted to be an animator. But you've got a woman running Lucasfilm, allegedly now, that doesn't think animation is something she should be interested in because it's children's stuff. When you look at the people who watched Clone Wars, they would watch it with their families. And, you know, for her to say that and stick her nose up at basically the only thing that was keeping Lucasfilm relevant in the late 2010, like between 2008 and 2012. I mean, it's like, who the hell do you think you are? You know, John Ford? I mean, look, taking a painted picture and turning it into a moving picture is really kind of cool. And it's a really precise artwork. And there's a lot of, because they can do whatever they want. It's in the animated, whatever. The Daffy Duck, Bugs Bunny, it's duck season, rabbit season, whatever. The reason why those got so popular is that the guys who animated that stuff and wrote those stories and painted the cells were drinking bourbon, smoking cigars, trying to figure out how many different ways they could blow off Daffy Duck's beak. And I took the history of animated film in one of my art classes, and I loved it. I got an A plus on it because, first off, because it's creative art, you can kind of bullshit your way through it. There's also a thing of intellectual exercise there that you realize watching this stuff. When you're watching this stuff, that they're actually saying something deeper. There was one thing about nuclear war, and I wrote a bullshit paper on it, and I knew what they were saying. I mean, and I got an A on that. And I remember telling the professor, it's like, this isn't hard for me because I can think on that. You read on that kind of level, and film, when you're looking at it, isn't that hard. What's hard is propaganda versus storytelling, because propaganda doesn't tell a story. I mean, Mojo.com did a top 10 directors, and they put a Soviet era director into a place that like number 3, and Spielberg should have been number 2 or 3, right? Orson Welles was number 2, and then John Ford of all people was number 2, and these 2 French guys from 100 years ago were number 1. I disagreed with that. There's a different way of looking at top directors versus top pioneers, and John Ford could be in both, right? Okay. But they had this guy on there, and I can't think of his name. And he directed and wrote the Battleship Potemkin, which is literally one of the most disgusting left-wing propaganda movies I've ever seen in my life. And I actually had to watch it in school, and I complained to my professor. I was like, why are we watching Soviet era propaganda? I mean, to me, movies that are made for that reason are not good movies. It's just like the Nazi era, Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will. When you watch it, you're like, this is a documentary on how great Nazism is. This isn't a movie. but it's given, and trust me, the people in Hollywood know, they give it a lot of kudos, and they know that what it is, right? The great, when they show the naked guy throwing the javelin, the great Aryan, figure, master race, and all the rest of that shit. It's like, but that's propaganda. A few years ago, I think in 2018 or 2019, the Chinese film industry put out a movie about a lake battle that made like $2.5 billion in China. And I haven't seen it, but the people who did said it's a propaganda movie, and everybody had to go see it. Everybody. And that this is a country that does not want to give individual achievement any kudos. I mean, when Cameron worked in China for that time and he was helping them, they would not touch any individual stories about heroes. And so it's like, that's what you're dealing with, but that's propaganda, right? Stories unite. If they're based on mythologies, and like I talked about in the video from a couple weeks ago, there are certain unifying stories in mythology across cultures. The flood, Noah's Ark, that is everywhere. You go from ancient Sumer and the Epic of Gilgamesh to Noah, but then there's a flood myth from China. There's a flood myth from ancient South America. Everywhere, right? And from 11,000 years ago, something major league happened all across the planet. And was it the very end of the Ice Age? I don't know. All right, I don't know. But thanks, Dave. That's a unifying myth. People understand it. The hero's journey is a unifying myth. It's a unifying story. Moses. We have King Arthur. We have Achilles. We have Aeneas. We have Ulysses, Odysseus. We have, oh God, how many Egyptian myths? We have all kinds of things from across Mediterranean. We've got Asian Indian mythology. We've got even ancient Chinese mythology. This hero's journey. And that's why Star Wars across the board in the late 70s, early 80s grabbed people's attention, because it was a different kind of storytelling than what we were getting in the 70s, when we got The Godfather, when we got Mean Streets, when we got Taxi Driver, and a few other things that aren't exactly positive. They're not uplifting. The hero's journey is supposed to be inspirational, right? And Kathleen Kennedy, again, doesn't understand it. I mean, her idea for a hero's journey is to soft reboot Star Wars, but put her avatar, Rey, into the thing, and then basically erase everything George created, which is exactly what, and the disaster movies of the 70s. Towering Inferno, airport, but, these are the things that she doesn't understand. And again, Iger said nothing. Nothing. Zero. And, you're kind of going, why don't you just tell us what's going on? See, here's the thing. I think they'd probably get a lot more hype if we had an endpoint to her, right? If we knew who was coming on board, if we knew what was changing, if we had any sort of idea of what was happening next. Besides, we filmed, Mando and Grogu are in post-production. Ahsoka is still in primary photography, and Starfighter is in pre-production. I mean, that's it. Sure, we've seen people leave. Pippa Anderson and Dustin Sandoval, but what else is going on? And these are the things that I think people need to be asking questions, because I think as Star Wars fans and as people, with some emotional currency involved in this, that we deserve to have answers to our questions. And you look at Frank Marshall's Instagram. He hasn't said a word about anything. And what do you mean Iger's going to be in a position to make relevant decisions? I don't understand. He already is. If you wanted Kennedy to go, like if he felt like making a big deal about it, and I think it would actually help, you go to the board and say, I want to fire her. I want to pay her contract off and I want her out. Now, I do think, because of the things we know, and I'm going to rehash this for people, I know if you've heard this before, I don't think Tony has, so I'm going to talk about it. Back when Dial of Destiny came out, and Dave will back me up on this. The day of the Dial of Destiny's premiere at Cannes Film Festival, Willow was removed from the Disney streaming service, and the hotel was basically being closed that September. After Steven Spielberg basically dissed Kennedy in front of everybody, her and her husband both. And that was, and after, and I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot at the movie theater, get a call from Cameron saying Kennedy's been kicked off the Lucasfilm server. Now, I know what they were doing. And I was like, so I walked in there, and, again, first 20 minutes of the movie were fine. That was Indiana Jones. The rest of the movie was Phoebe Waller-Bridge shoving her condescending, smug ass, ugly face in it, duck face. That's why I call her duck face. Duck face sticking her face into everybody's business. And Kennedy desperately trying to turn Indiana Jones into a female-oriented adventure story, when it's like, we already have one. It's called Lara Croft. Knock it off. And I hated that show. That I saw the second one with Angelina Jolie, and I thought it was stupid. Glad she made a lot of money. So then we have afterwards this. 3rd of July, 2023, Kennedy has a face-to-face meeting with Iger, his number 2, Alan Bergman, Dana Walden, one of the backstabbing females, against Iger and Chapek, and lawyers. And he asks her straight out, why is Dial of Destiny failing? Why did you spend 100 million, 150 million more on the budget? And she turned it around on him, started attacking the failure of Shang-Chi, the Eternals, and basically trying to say that was his fault. And Kevin Feige, because he's a man, doesn't get all the bullshit I get. Iger went from 0 to 60, pissed off, right? So she blithely goes on vacation. She's gone for 40 days. Comes back, come to find out through Sparrow that she wasn't allowed on campus without a minder. All right, and we still don't know if that's changed or not, right? I'm literally going, so we don't know what's going on. So when I say allegedly, because as far as I can tell, the person running Lucasfilm is Jon Favreau. Now, he's doing Oswald the Rabbit for Disney, but I don't know if he's directing it. I don't know what that entails because it's animation. And you're not, do you have to leave and go on location for it, right? I mean, they could turn it into a Lucasfilm Disney joint adventure. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that if you look at the public, what we know in public, and then weigh it against what we've been told through Sparrow and other entities, and Matt Bellany even said so last February, that he was told by 3 different Lucasfilm employees that Kennedy was out. And she was leaving in a few months to the end of the year, and I think she's out. I just think they have to announce it. I really, really do. And I think it would help Disney a lot to not only announce that she's leaving, these people are taking over, make sure that when they say she's gone, she doesn't have any influence over anything that goes on creatively. Because look, I watched the Book of Boba Fett again. You know, by the way, Tamara Morrison basically wants us to write to Lucasfilm and say we need Tamara back. He needs to play a role. You know, he played the most characters in the show. He played every clone, Boba Fett and Jango Fett. I mean, you know, so, you know, if you want to do that, I watched it. And the story started losing me when the Skittles bikers showed up and how Boba Fett saved Fennec Shand. I'm like, now I am going to say this. I think you'll know more if we suddenly get news through Gina that Disney settled and she's got her job back. Now, there's still time between now and next May for Gina to film pickups for Mandalorian. So there you go. Well, you know, I don't know. They have to make a statement. She's not going to come back until Kennedy's gone. I mean, officially, even if she is not really running the show, she still has people there that will fuck around. They haven't found out yet. Now, I will have to say this. Rain Roberts, who was part of the production team for The Acolyte, quietly was removed and moved over to Fox Searchlight. And this guy named Max, oh, I can see his face, Max something or other, is gone. And that was on the leadership team. I check it every day. I haven't done that today. I'm going to have to. Because as you see them leave and they get replaced, like Rain Roberts was replaced by a white man. You know. You know, Anthony, I don't think any of that had anything to do with Favreau. I really, really don't. I know what he was trying to do with the Tusken Raiders tribe and Mando. If you've ever seen a movie called A Man Called Horse, that's exactly what it was. Richard Harris plays a British nobleman in the 50s out in the middle of, you know, bumfuck Wyoming or Montana, who gets kidnapped by a band of Sioux Indians. They turn him into a slave. Now, the history there is wrong because I've never actually heard of the Sioux taking white slaves. I have heard of Comanche doing that, right? And he basically is enslaved to the chief's mother. He ends up saving the tribe, the women and children of the tribe, and the old people because there was a member of a warring tribe attacking the village, and he becomes a warrior, and then he becomes one of the tribes, one of the band's leaders. So basically, excuse me, that part was the Book of Boba Fett, and trying to explain that to dipshits that have never really watched any movies, who are Star Wars fans, who are incapable of actually sitting down to watch a movie objectively or a TV show. They didn't see that. What they saw was Dances with Wolves. And it's like, I don't remember Dunbar ever being a slave. Just a thought, you know? Just a thought. And what I think happened is John was sent on assignment by Iger or whomever, Chapek or whomever, to Atlanta, where they film a lot of Marvel content. And when he came back, it was a disaster because if you notice, the two best episodes are the ones with Boba Fett, or are the ones with Din Djarin in it. Those episodes were actually the first two episodes of Mandalorian season 3. All right. So there you go. And I think that part of the problem is Robert Rodriguez, nice guy, could not withstand, hey Mike, could not withstand the bullying of Kathleen Kennedy. Because again, Kennedy will beat up a guy that's not on her level, who's not an alpha. You know, think about it. She couldn't do that to Ridley Scott. She couldn't do that to Chris Nolan. She sure as fuck couldn't do that to Steven Spielberg or George Lucas. I mean, the reason why Spielberg left Dial of Destiny is because I think she was desperate to hire Phoebe Waller-Bridge. You know, and she was like, I'm the president of the company, this is what we're doing. And he said, fine, fuck you, you know. Well, the erasure of the Rangers of the New Republic is because another piss poor decision, Kathy, allowing your people to bully a professional actress because they didn't like her politics. And that's what happened. And, you know, her not being able to understand a meme and running with the anti-Semitic dog whistle in Hollywood. That's what happened. But as far as any word on what if Iger mentioned Star Wars, and I don't know if he did or not, he didn't mention it. I mean, If he'd have mentioned Lucasfilm is going to see some changes, Kathy is stepping out to do other things at the end of the month, at the end of October, at the end of November, on December 31st, doesn't fucking matter. That would have been everywhere. That would be the headline. Nothing else he said matters. So well, I don't remember what show wasn't really a thing. I don't understand what you're saying. Anyway, I gotta go. I'm losing my voice. So if anything happens today, I'll be back. And yes, Matt Smith is going to be in Starfighter as a bad guy. And I think it's probably compensations for losing his scenes in The Rise of Palpatine. I don't think she said that about the Rangers of the New Republic because Gina didn't get fired till the winter of 2021. So anyway, I got rock. See you guys around the galaxy. Behave, be safe. And I will see y'all later.